Hey, how's it going, everyone? This is John at the Drone Life, and today we're going to be talking about 7 of the most common questions that we get about drones in construction. So, in this video, you're going to be learning some of the common use cases of drones in the construction industry, who can fly the drone at construction sites, how can the drones be flown at airports or sites around airports, how will drones save money in construction, how often should the site be flown, how much money does it usually cost to hire someone to fly the drone, and then how most common use cases of the data. And so before we get started, just a brief background. I'm the owner of a drone service company called the Drone Life up in New Jersey, and we do a lot of services for construction companies. And I'm also joined here with my co-host, Brady Nuff.
Hey guys, I'm Brady. I work closely with John with the Drone Life and in the drone industry, and I'm excited to talk about a lot of these use cases and answer some of you guys' most prominent questions. So I'm excited to get into it. John, what is the first question that we wanted to talk about today?
Yeah, so what are some of the common uses of drones in construction? So this is, a really common question that we get asked, and there is a lot. So first off, we're getting into mapping and photogrammetry. So there's lots of different types of maps you can actually make with drones of construction sites. For example, some of them would be called orthomosaics, where it's basically a satellite image where it's a straight down looking 2D. And then you can make 3D maps, which can easily integrate into different services like CAD for doing the whole planning and design phases. And then we also have surveys. You can do complete surveys using drone technology and doing earthworks. And then Brady, do you want to talk about a little bit about the next one's progress monitoring?
One of the major services that companies use is progress reports and volumetric stockpile calculations. So progress reports mostly entail photos and videos, not a lot of hard data, but mostly visual data. And then volumetric and stockpile calculations involve a lot of 3D modeling to help calculate earthwork and kind of the volumetric measurement of land or certain height points that, like you said, can be very, very important in the planning phase of a project, usually early on before they kind of break ground. So, seeing how much earth is there, how much they need to move. A lot of sites have either a pile of debris or a pile of soil that will need to be moved. So, for instance, a drone pilot can come in and take a volumetric measurement of that pile of dirt and give a very accurate number as far as how many trucks they're going to need to move that dirt, how much manpower is going to be needed to get it done. So allows them to really calculate accurately for the removal or movement of that soil, which can be very, very beneficial as a construction company to save their time and not over or underestimate the amount of work that's going to go into the project. And we had talked a lot about the progress reports last week, but kind of just adding on to that, in the final phase of a project, a lot of those photos and videos play a big role in the marketing of the property. And if it is some sort of a commercial build, there's a lot of work that needs to be done on their end as far as getting that property marketed and leased or sold or whatever it may be. So having those high quality 4K pictures really adds a professional look to the site and allows them to send them to potential clients or partners.
Yeah, definitely. And so, the next really big question that we see is, can fly the drone? So a construction company, it's just getting into drone technology. You really have two options, whether you're going to be doing the in-house or the outsource program. And so a lot of companies really think that they can just buy any kind of drone from the shelf and use it to do like all these different services that we just were talking about. But really, that's actually far from the case. So pilots actually need a license called an FAA Part 107, which basically means that any kind of commercial use of a drone, so whether it's going to be indirect or direct commercial uses for drones, you're going to need to have a Part 107 license. And I actually have seen construction companies who use drones, actually, Brady, and they don't have the license. And you can figure this out because there's actually a public database of everyone who has these drone licenses that anyone can go on the FAA website and actually look it up. So these things are not toys, especially. You really have to know what you're doing, and there's a lot of stuff that you have to understand when you're operating these types of aircraft.
John, I couldn't agree more. And a lot of these companies, you see that they have teams of 20, 30, 40, 50 people on the ground and a lot of moving parts as far as cranes and trucks coming in and out. And a lot of, I just wanted to touch on some of the content of that Part 107 license. So as a company, I always recommend that they either have their pilots licensed or hire someone who is licensed, just because of the material that they had to learn to get that license. So a lot of it has to do with airspace regulations, weather conditions, flying conditions, and the safe operation of a drone. So when you're a construction company and you have men on the ground and people who are, their ears are covered and there's a lot of loud machinery, it's vital to make sure that your pilot has a full understanding of the site and is, piloting this thing carefully, because, I'm sure John, those things can really hurt you if you're not safe. So being safe and aware of your environment is first and foremost and very important.
And yeah, just a reminder that the FAA actually classifies drones as being part of the national airspace. So in their eyes, a drone, even though it's a little looks like a little toy like the ones that are behind me, they are considered an aircraft. So they are considered just like a plane. So if God forbid any kind of accident happens, with flying drones, in coordination of, say, manned aircraft, the FAA takes this as a serious aircraft accident. And there's a lot of penalties, fines, and jail time with that type of stuff. So next, what kind of brings us into the next question is, can you fly the drone near sites next to airports? So actually, I have an example of this. Recently, a couple months ago, I was contacted by a construction company up near me in New Jersey, and the site was right actually next to the Philadelphia airport, right across the river from the airport. And so that was a big concern with them, and they were asking me a lot of questions about airspace and whether they could even be doing these drone operations right next to this airport. And of course, there's different ways we can get permission with this. There's waivers with the FAA. So if you're really close to the airport, you actually have to fill out a waiver and submit that, which isn't as common these days because we do have the LANC system, which allows anyone to apply for aerospace authorization basically instantly using these different applications. And then depending on your aircraft manufacturer that you buy, they actually do have internal things that actually limit you for taking off inside certain airspace as well. So
yeah, and John, just to kind of ask a question, as far as maybe a drone, a lot of the drones that we fly are very advanced and have those LAANC systems that are, included in them that kind of can detect a moving plane in the airspace, and very smart. But what are your operations when flying maybe a drone that isn't as sophisticated near an airport? Is there still a process you can go through to get that FAA clearance to fly in that area?
Yeah, so this is a big factor as well. So depending on how big your aircraft is, how much it weighs, all these different things that go into it, your operations, will be changing when you're flying with the airports. Another example, I was flying actually around 2 weeks ago, right next to the runway of an airport, and at that point, planes are coming in and they're, just going over the trees at around 150 feet. And so this was an uncontrolled airport, so there wasn't any authorization that you didn't need to get because the airport was really kind of in a remote area. But you have to really be aware and be actually on a lookout for this stuff. So something I recommend is actually getting something called an airband transceiver or an airband radio, which actually lets you listen into what the pilots of the manned aircraft are actually talking about. So so it's good to learn a little bit of aircraft terms, and then you can have better situational awareness when you're flying next to the airports. So
Yeah, that's a great tip. That's always a good thing for every pilot to have is some way to kind of understand what's going on in the airspace and get a little bit of a heads up before a plane's too close to really make any last minute changes. So I think that's good. And I had a unique case a couple months ago too. I did a job for UC Health, which is a big chain of hospitals out here, and one of them had a helipad on the building, so they were curious if I could fly
hmm.
there. And I was able to because of the I was able to get clearance to fly there, but they pretty much put out a kind of a PSA to all the pilots and everyone in the control tower that there was a drone operation going on. So they kind of knew that the time frame was there, and I think that's just a really important thing too, making sure that the all the parties involved within that time period, are informed and able to assist in the operation, the safe operation, I should say.
Yeah, it's a great point. So, all right, now let's talk about how exactly do drones actually save money for construction companies. So, we hear this a lot. People talking about how different ways drones are cutting costs and all this. So, Brady, what are some of the ways that we're actually seeing now uh, of drones are saving money at construction sites?
Oh, this is a great topic to talk about, and I think something that a lot of people don't fully understand, but a lot of the savings comes from safety as well as the data that's provided to them. So, for instance, what we were talking about earlier with those volumetric measurements and those orthomosaics, volumetrics measurements for one are very beneficial because they can allow for the time savings and cost savings of man hours, all the trucking and heavy machinery that's involved in a project. So for them to more precisely predict exactly how long something's going to take and how many people are going to have to be involved is a huge advantage for them because that prediction isn't just being eyeballed. They have an exact number and they can make a cost. They can factor in the exact cost for what it's going to be, and they don't have to make any sort of wild assumptions about it. So that's one very large one. The next thing that I would say is then communication between different parties that are involved in the project. So, I'm sure John, that there's a lot of moving parts and different, there's architects, project managers, different teams that are all working simultaneously. So, for them to have some sort of visual aid to kind of communicate progress and see what's going on at the site at that given time is very vital and allows them to more efficiently carry out their operations.
Yeah, because communication is obviously key in construction. Without proper communication, things end up badly. So, but the benefits of having drone data is you're able to actually send, these videos and pictures to everyone or anyone that you want. So all the subcontractors, all the different clients, investors, workers, project management, anyone who's involved in the site, can have a good idea of what it's looking like and what's going on. And so if there's better communication, there's also, less mistakes. For example, we talked about earlier with drone orthomosaic maps, and what's a really cool feature that you can actually do is overlay existing CAD drawings over top of this drone map, and so you can actually see exactly if, say, concrete, was over poured in certain sections, or if, say, like underground utilities were actually placed in the wrong areas. So, finding these mistakes before they become too costly is definitely really important.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, John. And another thing that I've heard from a lot of people is that the some of the benefits aren't even seen like until 3 to 5 years out. So one instance is I was working with this lady and she was doing a big commercial apartment development. It was probably 50 to 100 units, and it was a pretty advanced build. They had electrical, HVAC, insulation, all kind of going in at once. So by having drone pictures and videos from kind of all around the site, they were able to have a very good visual record of how the wiring was done, how the insulation was put in, and making sure that everything was compliant. Because 3 to 5 years down the line, it's sometimes really hard to go back and say, wait a minute, did we put the wiring there? or was the HVAC system, put between these two pieces of insulation? So going back, and they can look at an individual month where it was exposed, and they can take it, they can fully see the entire area. And if they have to make an insurance claim, they have exact data to kind of back up whatever they need to. So that's another big plus.
Yeah, that's a great point. Now let's get into the next question here. So how often should the site be flown? So this can really depend on, again, what type of deliverable or what type of um, map or whatever you're trying to make of the construction site. So, for example, of doing progress monitoring, we often will be going out and flying once every 2 weeks or every month. So, this really can depend on how the site is progressing and according to the building schedule and how slow or fast things are moving along. And then, with stuff like earthwork surveys, that has its time and place of when that is going to be done. And so you really just want to align with the building schedule. Is definitely just probably one of my biggest tips of how often the site should be flown. And hey, some companies go out there and they fly every single day. So whether it's going to be for marketing shots or just generally keeping some tabs on what's going on.
Yeah, absolutely. And you said it perfectly. I think it, varies company to company and job to job, but one rule of thumb that I always tell people is I think a good place to start is with that bi-monthly or monthly photo matchup, just because regardless of the project, that'll be beneficial. And then some of those other more in-depth services are kind of more as needed. So, some companies need an orthomosaic done once every 2 months or 3 months, or, it's very individualized to the client, which is something that John and I definitely put a lot of emphasis on, and try and, when we're onboarding a new client, trying to really get to the bottom of the timeline that they're working on and the data that they need to be working efficiently. So it really depends on the site, but getting that initial photo and video matchup done is going to be beneficial to 99.9 companies that are looking to implement drones. So I think that's always a good place to start.
Yeah. Okay. And so now into probably one of the most asked questions. So how much is it all going to cost? So right now we're just going to be giving a brief overview of the different prices. If you are looking to outsource these drone operations, if you are doing in-house, it can really vary widely depending on how many pilots, what type of drones you get, what type of data you need. That stuff can get kind of crazy of how much
Absolutely.
that might cost. But basically, for hiring drone service providers or drone companies that can come into the site and get all the data that you need. First off, there's usually going to be a base price of how of what the project entails, how big it is, what type of deliverables they're going to have. And some companies might even charge hourly for being on site. We don't do that, but we've definitely seen people do that as well. And then you get the, just like any regular contractor, their price really just factors into location, like, how far away the site is, if they have to drive there for a long time. Just regular stuff like, factoring in their insurance costs. Sometimes sites actually, require me to have extra insurance for different problems that could come up, so that actually can increase the price as well. And then what's some of the Brady? I know you're talking about this before we started the recording. What were some of the other things that can affect the price?
Yeah, so some of the things that really play a big role to me is the pilot's time and the post-processing time. So, again, the pilot has, the construction person sees them for probably 30% of their total working hours on the job. So, they have a couple hours before the project getting the drones packed up, getting batteries ready, getting their insurance and making sure everything's ready to go, getting that flight plan ready, driving to the site, talking to the people on site, getting all your equipment set up, making sure you're understanding your surroundings, flying within all limitations of the site, and then insurance, again, making sure that you are insured and can provide these companies with full coverage. And that's actually a big benefit of outsourcing drone work is, you're kind of taking the liability off your plate and allowing someone who's very good at the job to come in and really get it done exactly how you want it. But there's a lot of other costs. And I was going to ask you, John, what's one of the biggest costs that you see as a drone company, um, each month on your bills? What's something that you pay out a lot of money for?
Yeah, for just drone companies in general, it's really just maintaining your equipment. Drones actually have a pretty short shelf life. They have new models coming out every year. It's basically, just like cars and phones. But what happens sometimes happens with phones as well, with Apple especially. But, they might, the companies usually might degrade the quality of their older products and not support them anymore, especially parts. If you have a crash with the drone, parts might not be really available, and after just a couple of years after it was a brand new drone. So definitely stuff like that. But one thing I really really wanted to stress on, so if you are looking to hire someone for the first time, to have come out and do some drone flights at your sites, uh, don't pick the lowest bidder. So, there's this is a big factor with the pricing. So, depending on what type of company and how much experience you're getting out there, you know, I'm gonna say it right now. There's a lot of drone companies out there advertising different construction services. Most of them are not qualified, and they don't even understand PPE and just basic construction terminology. So you really have to do your research and look at case studies, see example work that they've done. Maybe they have clients that from other companies that you might even know them, different project managers. Give them a call, ask them, how was your experience with this drone company? So that's a big factor. Now moving on to this is our last one we got here. So how would the data be used? Brady, I know this one is your expertise, so you want to take this one on?
Yeah, so there's a lot to unpack here, honestly, but one of the, we've been talking about it, we've been bringing it up, but I just really want to hammer home the importance of those monthly matchups and how beneficial that can be, because a lot of these projects go up so quick, and there's not a lot of watching the entire evolution of the project. So a lot of the work that we do is we use a certain software that can take a picture from the exact same height, distance, exposure, gimbal angle, and what this allows is a really, really nice, smooth matchup at the end of the project that will kind of show a time lapse of the whole development. And this just kind of shows, when things were installed, when, kind of keeps everyone in the project informed, and can be a really cool marketing tool as well for the people that will be using the building in the future. And a lot of it is also used, when there's hard data involved, it's used throughout the project. So, hard data usually comes in the beginning, in the middle of the project, and then towards the end of it, it's mostly marketing, photos, and then that initial or that final like 3D model of the project is something that I also recommend a lot of companies do. Yeah, John, what other use cases do you have?
Yeah, you can even think of that as kind of like the time lapse cameras, are commonly put up like in trees or poles or something, that actually like take photos every single day, like for months or years, and actually at the end you get like this really cool video showing the progress happening. So you can kind of think of that like with drones, where the drone actually can take the photos or videos at the same exact kind of angle in the sky, so they can be matched up easily like that. Like we said, before, there's a lot of different ways this data can be used. A lot of different things you can run with it.
Yeah, and one more thing I wanted to mention was
Yeah.
Lumber prices right now, as I'm sure you know, and most people listening know, is they're very high, and companies don't want to be paying any more than they need to for those very high expense materials. So one way that I've seen drones play a big part in the construction industry is tracking the material usage month over month. So if I'm doing a timber frame and I have leftover material and I have a picture from last month and a picture from this month, I can see where that pile's at, how much we have left, where our 2x4s are, where our big sheets of timber are, and that can be really, really beneficial in cutting those costs down and making sure you're being efficient with your usage of materials, and tracking them month over month for your investors and your project managers, and subcontractors as well. A lot of companies will bring in a roofer or a stonemason or something like that, and so to have accurate calculations on their materials is imperative to staying on budget and making sure you're keeping the costs right where you want them. So.
But yeah, that
Yeah.
pretty much covers it up for our 7 most common questions that we get about drones in construction. And if you have any more questions, feel free to put them in the comments or whatever platform you're watching on. You can reach out to us on our website or definitely on LinkedIn. We're definitely really active on there. And we actually have a good amount of articles about each of these different use cases or some questions on our website. So definitely take a look at the blog. There's a lot of more deep dives and a lot of these different topics. And so also, if you're looking to have any kind of advice about drones or would like to have us come inspect, not inspect, but come out to one of your sites, then definitely you can schedule a consultation call with either of us on our website. So thanks for watching. Definitely subscribe, like the video on YouTube and write a review. And thanks for watching. Catch you again soon.